Okay, so right now we're going to discuss how to set up and use the Altair 5X multigas detector for confined space. The detector itself comes in this Pelican case, which comes off of the vehicle 1294. The calibration gas unit also comes off of 1294, which is behind me. The monitor is MSA Altair 5X gas monitor. It only has a 4-gas sensor built into it. Those 4 gases are for oxygen, combustibles, carbon monoxide, and hydrogen sulfide. Those are the 4 most likely things that we need to be monitoring at incidents. To turn the unit on, this middle button right here, you hold that down. It'll immediately alarm when it first turns on, and it's going to go through a startup process here where it does a variety of things. It's a computer, and like any computer, it takes a little bit of time to set up. You can hear that the internal pump just turned on. The internal pump is on the back side of the unit right here, and this pump actually pulls a sample of air in for it to check. One of the first things you need to do when you turn this unit on, once it goes through the initial orientation process, is occlude the pump. And it does this to ensure that the pump is actually functioning and actually pulling gas into the unit. All it took was simply putting my finger over the pump inlet for a second, and it passed that portion. Right now it's going through each of the different sensors. It's going to go through the oxygen sensor, then the combustible sensor, then the carbon monoxide sensor, and the hydrogen sulfide sensor, and it's going to give you levels low and high for each of these that it's going to alarm at. This process takes a little bit of time, so you have to be patient. It's also why it's important to turn this unit on quickly when we get on scene, so that it can go through this orientation startup process before we need to use it. One of the nice things about this unit is that it also tells us the last time that it was calibrated, and that should be done on a monthly basis. It also goes through a self-check of each of the sensors and tells you if there's any problems with the sensor and which one it is and when it should be replaced. These are some of the nice features that this new monitor has that the old one didn't. It's now moved into the main screen, and it's asking if we want to perform a fresh air setup. We're going to select yes, which is the down arrow. We push that once. And the fresh air setup is just a quick check to make sure that the sensors are working properly. And if you could see that, each of the 4 sensors had a check mark showing that it's working properly. Right now, it's just in a normal functioning mode where it's checking each of the different things. Percent oxygen, percent lower explosive limit, that's your combustible sensor, your parts per million of carbon monoxide, and your parts per million of hydrogen sulfide. If any of these go above a critical value, the monitor will start to alarm. Another important thing when we first turn this monitor on is to quickly do a bump. And a bump is basically where we're going to feed a little bit of calibration gas into the monitor to let it check that the sensors are working properly. So to do that, what we're going to need to do is actually grab the calibration gas, set it up, and connect it to the monitor. So I'm going to put the monitor down for a second. And the calibration gas is also an MSA gas. We screw the top in here, and what we're going to do is open it all the way up, and this has a known concentration of each of the 4 gases that we're interested in. Now I'm going to push the bump button again, which is just a simple push of the down arrow. And I'm going to put the tubing from the calibration gas close to the unit itself. I'm going to hit yes for the bump test. And here it didn't appreciate it because I put it too close to the unit too quickly. I'm going to push bump again. I'm going to hit yes for the bump test. And here you can see that each of those sensors passed because they were exposed to that amount of calibration gas. The last thing that we want to go through is how to actually calibrate the unit, and this is important to do once a month. To do this, we're going to push the up button, which says Cal for calibrate. First, it's going to ask if we want to zero out the calibration. So we're going to hit yes, which is the down arrow once, and it's going to zero out each of the sensors. For this portion, we want it to be in fresh air, away from any other sources of any of those four gases, so we certainly don't want to be near any vehicles, because vehicle exhaust can change the values that we might expect. And this takes about 45 seconds to complete, or a minute to complete, so you do have to give it a little bit of time. We've successfully zeroed out all the sensors, and the next step now is going to be to expose the unit to the calibration gas. And each of these values here corresponds to the known concentration of the gases within the calibration gas. So now I'm going to turn my calibration gas unit back on, let it flow freely, all the way open, connect it to the back of our unit, and then hit yes to say that we want to span the calibration. This is basically going to span or help calibrate each of these sensors so that they know they have a known quantity or a known concentration to go off of. And this is going to take about 1 extra minute. So the whole process to calibrate takes anywhere from 2 to 3 minutes, and if you need to start it up and do this whole process, it's about a 5-minute ordeal for each of the monitors. And we have 2 monitors, so each of those takes about 5 minutes. It's about a 10-minute process, 10 to 15 minutes once a month. The expectation is that everyone will become proficient in doing this so that they can do this at any time. Here again, we get check marks through each of the sensors. We know that everything is working properly. At this point, we can disconnect the gas, the calibration gas. We're going to reset those alarms. And here you can see, just in the general screen, these levels are all returning to normal because we've disconnected it from the calibration gas and it's exposed to fresh air. To scroll through each of the screens is simply the down arrow, and then to turn off, you hold down the power button. And in summary, that's how you set up and use the Altair 5X gas monitor. And one last point is that it plugs in and charges on the back here. It's a rechargeable battery, and it's just simply you just slide this piece in and let it charge for about 8 hours. And that's it.